Hey, and I'm live. Okay. Let me just get in position so you can see my book here. Hi, Allison Verhalen here, coming at you live. And today I want to talk to you about on-page versus off-page SEO. This is something that is super important for your SEO, and it's something that we talk a lot about in the world of SEO. And all of a sudden it hit me, maybe not everyone knows the difference between on-page SEO versus off-page SEO. So if that really doesn't mean anything to you, if you're like, what are they talking about here? I'm going to break it down for you. So essentially, on-page SEO is the stuff that you are doing on your website. That's the stuff that is on your website that affects your SEO. But remember that, you can talk yourself up as much as you want. That's great. But Google wants to make sure that other people are using you as a reference, which means they see you as an authority in your industry. That also boosts your SEO, right? I think of it as like, someone saying that they're the best at whatever, right? Versus someone else giving you a referral saying this person really is the best person to talk to about XYZ, right? That referral is going to have a lot more weight than someone just telling you that they're the best of the best. So that's how I think of it. That I think is also how Google thinks of it. So Google looks at mentions. You don't necessarily need a link to your website. Links help, but remember, Google reads all. So even just a mention of your name, your brand, your company on another website can affect your SEO. So keep that in mind. And then backlinks do help. So when someone else links back to your website, that also affects your SEO. So I'm going to break it down a little bit more into the difference between on-page versus off-page SEO. I'm going to start with the on-page just because I want to give you guys some hope because off-page SEO is important, but it can feel a little frustrating that stuff that other people are doing on the internet can affect our SEO. Doesn't really feel fair, but like I said, Google wants to get that social proof that you really are an expert in your industry. So starting with on-page SEO, keywords obviously are super important. People are using keywords to find all kinds of information, to look for all kinds of information. If you don't have the words that they're using to look for you, you're not going to show up in those searches. So there's a lot more to SEO than just keywords, but at the end of the day, that's still what we use to look for information. So you need the right keywords and you need the right keyword placement. So you need to make sure that they're in your headline, in your URL or slug, as it's sometimes called, in your subheadings, right? All those meta tags. Make sure that they are in the right places. As far as keyword density, it's kind of a fine line, right? People are always asking me like, how often should a keyword be in there? I'm not sure there's really like one hard and fast rule. Having it in the introduction is really important because when it's at the top of that content, again, Google reads that content first. So keyword density, I try to get it in there once per paragraph. It doesn't always happen that often just because, again, remember that real human beings are reading this. I have been known to sneak it in twice in a paragraph if it's a long paragraph. If your paragraph is only 1 or 2 sentences, it's probably not long enough to get that keyword in there twice without it being really obvious and feeling like keyword stuffing. So just remember, yes, you need to get enough keywords in there to get Google's attention. But if it starts sounding really repetitive when you read it, then your audience is going to feel the same way and they're not going to click with that content. So use common sense, take a break from your content, come back and read it before you publish it. Make sure it doesn't sound super repetitive. If it does, then it's time to thin the keyword herd a little bit. Meta tags, I covered a little bit. Those are super important. Again, that's your URL, your subheadings, your meta description, which may or may not be a thing of the past. Coming up, I think right now, meta tags or meta descriptions. Meta description is the description you put in. That's what pops up underneath your headline when it shows up on hopefully the first page of Google, right? So you want to get that keyword in there. But Google has decided it's gotten better and better at pulling content from your page and putting that as the meta description instead of whatever you put as the meta description. So the better Google gets at doing that, and the more Google does that, we are thinking that meta descriptions might not really be a thing for a whole lot longer. So definitely still use them for the time being, optimize them, get those keywords in there. But don't put a whole lot of weight on them just because Google is, like I said, getting better and better at pulling content from, pulling a paragraph or something from your content and putting that under your headline when it displays your website as a result. Content marketing, right? This is your landing pages. This is your blog. At the end of the day, Google just wants to help its users find content that is useful and answers their questions. So you have to be creating content that is useful and answers your target audience's questions. Length, right? Everyone asks me how long a blog post should be. The average, right? Length of an article to rank on the first page of Google is about 1,700 words. That's the average, right? So there's some longer, some shorter. I've heard some SEO experts insist they never write a post shorter than 2,000 words. Some even insist on going as long as 3,000 words. That's a lot of content, especially if you're publishing every week, much less more often, right? That's a lot. People ask me if the length varies depending on the industry. It really does not. It does vary by keyword. So if you've got your target keyword, you're writing your content, take a look at some of the other content that's out there that's already ranking for that keyword and see how long that content is. If it's on the shorter side, you can go on the shorter side. If it's really long and in-depth, then your content needs to be even longer and even more in-depth in order to get Google's attention. I don't think length matters as much as making sure that you are covering everything there is to cover on any given subject. So make sure you are doing that. Frequency, Google likes blog posts that are publishing new content at least once a week. Those are the ones that are really getting results. If you post more often, you get more results. The people who are posting daily and multiple times per day are getting the best results out of their blog. If you're doing this yourself, or if you're hiring someone like me to write your blog post for you, that is not sustainable, right? That's not a reality for most people. The people who are doing that either have a team of writers creating content for them and or a whole lot of guest blog posts they're relying on. So keep that in mind if that's not something you can do. I do recommend once per week at a minimum. Page load speed is another thing that's on your website that you can control. It's a little harder to control though, just because there are various things that influence your page load speed, right? So if you have a lot of images on your website, or especially if you have like a really long video somewhere, that can take a really long time to load. So if that is slowing down your page load speed and you know you have a lot of images and or a long video, it might be time to cut some of that visual content. Ads can take a long time to load, so keep that in mind if you use ads on your website. And if it doesn't appear to be anything that you can find, talk to your website host because it might be a problem on their end. So just check in with them and make sure that is taken care of. Also, an SSL certificate. This is basic. That's also taken care of by your hosting. So if you do not have an SSL certificate for your website, make sure you get one. Talk to your host about that. SSL certificate is when you see the URL pop up on Google and it has that little lock sign, right, the padlock right before the URL starts. That means that you have an SSL certificate. That means that your website is secure. So if anyone enters information on your website, even if it's just their email address, right, even if you're not taking payment information on your website, you still need to make sure that it is secure for SEO purposes, because Google does not want to direct its users to content that is potentially exposing them, right? So get that SSL certificate if you do not already. All right, on to the off-page SEO. This is primarily link building and social media. Social media is also a great way to build backlinks, but it's also an incredible opportunity to actually engage with your target audience, whether it's existing clients or prospects or people who have never heard of you before but would like to know more, or someone who met you at a networking event who would like to know more about you, right? So Social media is awesome. Hopefully you know, but if you don't, I'm just going to remind you not to just get up there and spam your way through social media, right? You should be providing content that provides value. There absolutely should be some posts that link back to your website, but that should not be all of the posts that you are putting out there. Again, a lot of them should just provide value, especially since we have seen some of the social media sites actually downgrade posts with links in them. They don't like those links because they don't want people to leave their social media site, right? Because then they don't make money. So links can actually hurt your visibility of your posts in some situations. So keep an eye out for that. But then there's link building for your website, right? That is getting other websites, again, high quality websites that are ranking for relevant searches. You want them to link to your website because Google assumes that like hangs out with like. So if there's another website that Google already likes and they're referencing your website, that's going to make you look good in Google's eyes. So that will boost your SEO. So get those backlinks. You can just reach out to influencers in your industry, ask for backlinks, especially if you notice they have a broken link on one of their pages. You can say, hey, maybe you want to replace that with a link to my website over here, right? So that is one way to go about it. Forums, online forums, again, social media posting. Don't just get in there, post a link to your website and run, right? If you really want to get the most out of those forums, you have to provide value. So answer people's questions, provide value, and then include a link to your website when it makes sense and only when it makes sense. Otherwise, it does looks spammy. Content partnerships are another one, right? You can kind of trade backlinks with someone else in your industry or in a related industry. Just don't go overboard with that because Google will eventually catch on to the fact that like these two websites are always linking back and forth to each other. So that can actually look suspicious after a while, and Google does not like that. What else? We've got guest blogging is not great for SEO juice, right? So you always get a link back to your website when you write a guest post for another blog. Google does not like that for some reason. I don't know why. So the result is that those links don't do anything for your SEO, but it's still organic traffic. I mean, the link still works. People can still click that link and get back to your website. So that is something to absolutely keep in mind as a way to get in front of a new audience. Again, establish yourself as a credible expert in your industry. So always keep that in mind. And podcasting, as far as I know, Google has no problem with those links. So if you are a guest on a podcast, again, you're getting in front of a whole new audience, but you're also getting that link back to your website, usually in the show notes on the podcast's website. So get on some podcasts if you have not done that already. So that is it. That is everything that I have for you today, all about on-page versus off-page SEO. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. And I do also, speaking of backlinks, if you are watching this before July 21st, 2022, I am having a free webinar on July 21st, 2022. So in a week and a half from now, when this is going live, we are going to have that webinar all about backlinks. So you can go to my website, AV, as in my initials, Allison Verhalen. It is avwritingservices.com. It will be under services and then under webinars. And I can also, I think I can edit that. Yeah, I can edit this and put a link to it in the comment section here in the description to this video. So that is it. I hope to see you all there and have a great week and happy blogging.